The first-generation Mazda 3 was equipped with engines with a displacement of 1.3 to 2.3 liters. 1.3-liter versions were sold in Eastern markets. The version with a 2.3-liter naturally aspirated engine was intended for the USA, and the charged MPS version is equipped with a 2.3-liter turbo engine. Most often, the Mazda 3 is found with a 1.6-liter and 2-liter naturally aspirated engine. 1.6 plus 105 horsepower Z6. The 1.6-liter engine produces 105 horsepower, but it drives this Mazda vigorously. This engine has a light alloy cylinder block with cast iron liners, a very durable timing chain and a durable phase shifter. There are no hydraulic compensators in the valve drive. There are turbulence dampers in the intake manifold. On literally all Z6 engines, these valves began to rattle and knock. Moreover, inexperienced owners and servicemen sentenced the engine to overhaul, believing that it was the connecting rods, valves and generally anything else in the hardware of the engine that were knocking. The knock can be easily eliminated by placing a washer under the gear on the damper axis, under its actuator. With normal maintenance, a 1.6-liter engine can easily run more than 500,000 kilometers and does not consume oil. True, the timing chain, ZJ0112-201, has to be changed approximately every 250,000 kilometers. You don't have to worry about adjusting the thermal gaps with pushers, ZJ0212-546. If the engine runs only on gasoline, then adjusting the gaps can be postponed until the timing chain is replaced, although it's worth measuring the gaps with a feeler gauge every 80,000 kilometers, so as not to have to deal with mysterious skips later. Ignition, that is, simple control of valve clearances, allows you to prepare for adjustment in advance. 2.0 150 horsepower, LFA. The 2-liter engine under the hood of the Mazda 3 is a super common unit of the LF series, which was installed not only on Mazdas, but also on Ford and Volvo cars. Formally, this engine is made in the same way as the younger one, an aluminum block with cast iron liners, a Morse chain in the valve drive, and no hydraulic compensators. There are no phase shifters either, but in the intake manifold there are flaps to create a vortex in the cylinders, and a flap for changing the length of the intake manifold. This engine has a weak thermostat, LF70-15-170, due to a malfunction of which the engine warms up slowly. In the cooling system, the plastic exhaust pipe with a splitter, LF941517Z, is rather weak. It lasts for about 10 years and then bursts. It can and should be replaced with an alloy pipe, L3331517Z, which was installed on the Mazda 6. Replace it together with a correct gasket, LF015169. Problems with the lambda probe for this engine are sometimes associated with chafing of the wires to the probe. Pay attention to the connector attached to the metal pad opposite the oil filler neck. The edge of the platform rubs both the protection and the wires themselves, leading to problems with the first lambda probe. Intake manifold flaps are also capable of producing extraneous noise when worn, and if the electric vacuum valve solenoid fails, corresponding errors appear. We talked about all this in detail in our full review of the 2-liter engine. The main thing you need to know about him is his passion for eating butter. The more the owner saves on oil, the greater the chance of encountering stuck piston rings. Sometimes decarbonization helps solve the problem, too. 3 plus 166 horsepower, L3C1. The 2.3-liter engine in Mazda 3 imported from the USA is the older brother of the 2-liter engine, but with one phase shifter. In general, it was borrowed from the first Mazda 6. And the most common problems here are the same: intake manifold flaps, thermostat, exhaust pipe and oil consumption. Mazda 2.3 DISI turbo 260 horsepower, LEKG. Well, the worst engine under the hood of the Mazda 3 went to its charged MPS version. This engine forced enthusiasts to spend a lot of money on its overhaul and replacement. Although in the hands of adequate drivers, this engine served for quite a long time. 1.6 Ms CD 109 horsepower, Y601. Diesel Mazda 3s are not that uncommon. Such specimens came to us from Europe. Under the hood they have a French 16-valve turbo diesel, which is widely known to fans of Peugeot and Citroën as 1.6 HDI or DV6. This is a cool engine that connoisseurs will appreciate, with a cast iron cylinder block, hydraulic compensators, without dampers, but with a turbine and a timing belt. French diesel is really very reliable. At 5 Street, the Mazda 3 manual transmission has a rather weak third gear. Its gear consists of 2 gears connected to each other by splines. Often, due to aggressive driving on cars with a 2-liter engine, the splines simply break off and third gear disappears completely, crunching noise when changing gears in 5th and 6th gears. Manual transmission, usually in 2, 3, 4 gears, indicates wear of their synchronizers. Difficult gear engagement occurs when the cables from the lever to the rocker are worn out and corroded. As a rule, lubrication of the cables and rockers returns the previous ease of gear engagement, 4F27E, FN4AL, 4-street automatic transmission. Until 2006, the Mazda 3 was content with the old 4-speed automatic transmission. It's a leisurely but durable transmission. With huge mileages, it is sent for repairs due to wear on the back cover. There is a distributor for supplying oil, so it wears out. In this case, third and fourth gears disappear. In this case, you need to take the car for repairs or at least to a pit in the garage. The rear cover is sold separately. FN11194J0D, for $200, $300 new, and you can change it without removing the automatic transmission at all. Yes, and other repairs of this transmission are carried out without removal. Often this transmission kicks when shifting from first to second gear. This problem can easily be eliminated from the outside by selecting a longer brake band adjusting bolt. These bolts are available in sizes from 36 to 39 mm in half a millimeter increments. There are also several options with increments of 0.25 mm. This bolt is located on the automatic transmission housing under the air filter. Typically, size 4 or 5 bolts, FN11213E4 and FN11213E5, are suitable for adjustment. You need to tighten new and slightly longer bolts, and then evaluate the smoothness of shifting from first to second gear. Usually it is possible to achieve completely unnoticeable switching. The filter, FNC121500, of this transmission is located in the pan, so it can be changed. True, the pan is sealed with a sealant, not a gasket. You will need to apply it carefully. For a partial replacement, you will need about 5 liters of Dexron 6 or Mercon LV oil. FNR5, FS5AL, 5-street automatic transmission. Since 2006, Mazda 3 switched to 5-speed automatic, which was created on the basis of a 4-speed. And the problems here are the same. The back cover, FN21194J0A, wears out in the same way and pulls the reverse drum behind it. This one has a 5-street automatic transmission and brake band and almost the same bolt, FN11213E1, in 14 sizes to adjust its preload. With long runs, the belt servo drive seat may wear out. To fill this automatic transmission, Mazda M5 type oil or its full analog type 5 is used. The filter, FN0121500A, is located in the pan. The Mazda 3 has an almost serial problem associated with corrosion of the fuse box located under the hood. Due to corrosion of the positive bus under fuse F31, the radio turns off, the interior lights do not turn on, the tachometer needles shudder after starting and hang in a non-zero position after the ignition is turned off. The problem is common, so craftsmen even offer a tire repair kit for installation instead of a corroded one. But you can also make changes in the fuse box, move fuse F31 to the free space F27. In any case, the fuse block busbars must be protected from corrosion with a special compound. Sometimes the contacts in the door wiring of these cars corrode, i.e. in the main connector at the connection with a harness from the body. There are problems with the information display on the radio. If its right side, where the airflow modes are displayed, does not work, then there are problems with the climate control board. If this display shows a scattering of pixels, then replacing it with a working one will probably help. Problems in the climate control unit are indicated by various glitches. The air conditioner does not turn off, incorrect temperature in the cabin and, as already mentioned, the lack of indication of airflow directions. Sometimes after disassembly it is possible to detect problems on the electronic board and fix them by soldering, but usually you have to replace the climate control unit with a used one. For right-hand drive cars there are 2 types with the following markings, FAB4 and SIN. This is for the Touring and Sport/MPS versions respectively. The Sports Climate Control Unit has a blue LED at the bottom that illuminates the area below it. The whistling and creaking heater fan of the Mazda 3 can be cleaned from dirt and lubricated. If this does not help, then it is better to fork out for the original BP4K61B10, costing under $300. Analogs are 5 times cheaper, but their quality is below average. Original Mazda engine mounts last at least 150,000 kilometers. The right support is hydraulic. BP4S39060E is the first to give up and has the least service in the 2-liter version. It leaks, and the engine tilts strongly to the right. Today, such a new original support costs about $400, and a decent replacement costs about $50. If, even though the right mount is working properly, vibrations from the running engine persist, then the lower mount needs to be replaced. The original costs about $40. BP4S39040B. The left support is located on top of the transmission, under the air filter. Its rubber damper is clearly visible from above. If a crack appears there, then the support needs to be replaced. It costs $30 to 90cc $2,939,070. When changing the oil in Mazda 3 engines, you need to take the appearance of corrosion on the pan seriously. Increasingly, cars that are operated in cities with abundant use of reagents in winter experience through corrosion of the pan with subsequent oil leakage. Another unpleasant failure of the Mazda 3 associated with corrosion is the failure of the silumen supports of the rear shock absorbers. If this happens while driving, and more often than not, the shock absorber literally falls into the wheel arch and begins to hit it in time with the vibration of the rear wheels. Good non-original supports, $50,926,577 for rear shock absorbers cost $20 to $30. The steering racks of the first generation Mazda 3 are hydraulic. For cars with a 2-liter gasoline engine and a 1.6-liter turbo diesel, the pump is electric. It is located behind the front bumper on the right, next to the windshield washer reservoir, hanging on the right front side member. It cannot be said that the electric power steering pump, BR5V32600F, is problematic, but if problems arise with it, it is better to find specialists in this unit. It is quite repairable and problems with it often go away after disassembling and washing. It's worse if it was injured in an accident and its body is cracked, then it will definitely have to be replaced with a used one. The new original is very expensive, and the replacements do not shine with quality. In all other versions, the power steering pump is driven by an attachment belt. The problems with it and with the rack are standard: leaks in the seals, in the tubes, humming of the pump. Many problems arise due to the fact that the power steering oil has not been changed for decades and people drive with cracked rack boots. The front suspension of the Mazda 3 has McPherson struts. New original lever assemblies, B32H34350E, can be purchased for about $200, and replacements can cost up to $120. All their components, silent blocks and ball joints, are sold only as non-original ones. For $30, $50 you can assemble a set of 2 silent blocks and ball joints for each lever. Front stabilizer struts, BP4K34170D, are a typical consumable that lasts up to 60,000 kilometers. Original stands sell for a maximum of $40 each. The rear suspension has 4 levers for each wheel. As is usually the case with Mazda, only the front trailing arm silent block, C2Y62846X, can be purchased separately, from $10 to $40. The front upper link, the smallest link, is inexpensive, also costs from $10 to $40, BDM228500A. The upper curved arm, BP4K28C10B, is more expensive, $40 to $120. A spring-loaded lever assembly costs between $50 and $170, BBP328300A, and you have to buy it if it is seriously rusty. There is no difficulty in assembling good non-original silent blocks for each lever and repressing them. Each sleeve costs an average of $10. Right off the bat, bodywork and body metal have never been Mazda's strong points. Let me put it simply, everything metal rusts catastrophically and quickly. Probably, today troikas are divided into 2 categories: rusty ones and those whose owners have already spent considerable sums on fighting corrosion. And we're not talking about harmless but unsightly rust on wheel arches or door edges. Everything is much deeper: the sills, the floor of the body, under the carpet, the spare tire niche, subframes and their attachment points to the body are rusting to holes. Even film-coated BP4K58W3B, BP4K508W4B, side door frames, areas at the level of the side windows, swell due to internal corrosion. Moisture gets inside the window frames of the doors through the holes under the clips of the rubber seal. And on hatchbacks, the paint at the top of the trunk door opening is miraculously wiped down to at least the primer, i.e. on the shelf under the roof on which the hinges of this door are attached. In general, you can only find a Mazda 3 without problems with its body somewhere far in the south, where there are no wet winters and no chemicals. Perhaps the body in its often deplorable condition is the biggest problem with these cars. Mazda 3 sedans develop an incomprehensible creaking noise in the rear of the cabin after a mileage of 150,000 kilometers. This creak is produced by steel parts that form the so-called rear parcel shelf. This is the part of the body behind the backs of the rear seats, i.e. arch under the rear window, top of the trunk. If you remove the rear seats and remove the trim from the trunk, then on the shelf and arch you can find not only hefty gaps between the parts, but even centimeter-long cracks between the body parts, cross members and torn welding points. In general, there is a very lack of rigidity in this place, and the loose parts begin to creak. If the creaking is very disturbing, then the parts of the rear shelf need to be drilled through and tightened with bolts. If possible, you can weld these parts. If the gaps are small, then you can hammer plastic choppers or dowels into them. This will quieten the body for a couple of years. It has also been noticed that creaking in the rear of the cabin in sedans can come from the plastic stops that adjust the position of the rear window. There are 3 of these stops in total. They support the rear window along its upper edge. To get to them, you need to lower the headliner in its rear part. To do this, remove the ceiling handles and several clamps. The stops under the rear window will be clearly visible. They are white. They need to be cut off and completely removed. The glass will stick normally to its glue. In Mazda 3 hatchbacks and less commonly in sedans, the red shades, light filters, or the brake lights melt. The original brake light bulb is very powerful and hot. Its heat melts the filters so much that they literally flow down like icicles and burst. The bright light of the incandescent filament breaks through the cracks. The easiest way is to replace incandescent bulbs with LED bulbs. You can immediately install red light bulbs and remove the damaged filter. A more expensive solution is original taillights with LEDs. These are installed from the factory on the Sport version. If water collects in the rear lights, simply replace the dried out seals between them and the body, NE 51-153 and NE 51-163. Also, due to the drying out of the lamp seals, water enters the trunk and flows into the niche under the spare tire. Another common way for water to enter is a broken trunk wiring corrugation and dried sealant between body parts in the rear of the body. In Mazda 3 sedans, the wires in the trunk harness burst, after which the light bulbs in the lanterns and the lighting present in the trunk lid, as well as the lock button, stop working if its wire is also cracked. The fog lights are located low in the bumper. Their lampshades are fragile and easily broken by stones. To protect them, it is best to protect them with a transparent anti-gravel film. The front bumper of many Mazda 3s sags in the center. The gap between the radiator grille and the hood increases. To eliminate sagging, you need to change the central brackets, BR5H52A1 and BR5H52B1 of the bumper. Or you can build more reliable solutions in the form of steel strip ties. Often the front bumper begins to protrude at the corners, along the junction with the wings. Here the antennae on the brackets break off. BP4K50U1E and BP4K50U1E, and the ears on the bumper also burst. The brackets need to be replaced with new ones, and torn counter holes in the bumper can be repaired by soldering plastic. From the factory, the wheel arches are equipped with pile lockers, which are popularly called felt boots. They get wet easily and for a long time, which only aggravates the problem of arch corrosion. And they literally fall off. They sag in the arches. It is best to replace them with a completely plastic non-original one. The Mazda 3's door stops wear out quickly. New front BP4K58270G and rear BP4K72270H door stops cost $25. However, a non-original repair kit made from crackers for 2 limiters costs about $12. With sufficiently skillful hands, they can be changed and restored to functionality. It is not at all necessary to buy limiters from the Boss G8 and 10 in order to disassemble them, remove the crackers, and sharpen them for installation in the Mazda limiters. Often these cars have problems with the power window control unit on the driver's door. As a rule, it just needs to be replaced with a working one. In terms of finishing, the chrome on the steering wheel emblem is peeling off on the Mazda 3. The emblem can be changed after removing the airbag,